Nand was sitting quietly in his office cabin, reviewing a few pending files on his laptop, when suddenly his office phone rang. He picked up the call and heard the voice of Sudhanshu from the HR department. "Hello, Nand," Sudhanshu said politely. "I wanted to discuss an important matter related to your retirement benefits. The company is giving employees an option. You can either continue with the regular Employee Provident Fund (EPF) structure or shift to the Corporate National Pension System (NPS). Honestly, Sudhanshu, he admitted, I don't really know the difference between EPF and NPS. Sudhanshu chuckled softly and replied, "Then you should definitely speak with Nilkanth, sir. He is extremely knowledgeable in retirement planning and employee benefit structures, especially EPF and NPS." Nand nodded thoughtfully and said, "That's actually a good idea. I'll speak with him." After disconnecting the call, Nand leaned back in his chair, thinking deeply. Although he had been working for almost 5 years, he realized he had never seriously tried to understand where a part of his salary was going every month. Just then, his mobile phone started ringing. To his surprise, it was Nilkanth. Nand, who was sitting in the office, immediately answered the call and said with a smile, "Sir, I was just about to call you. I wanted to discuss something about EPF and NPS." Nilkanth, who was at home, sounded amused. "Oh, really?" he replied. "You've been working for the last 5 years and your provident fund has been regularly deducted from your salary every month. Have you never checked your salary slip properly?" Nand laughed awkwardly and replied honestly, "Sir, I do look at my salary slip often, but mostly I only check the final salary credited to my account. I never really paid attention to the PF component or tried to understand it." Nilkanth laughed gently and said, "That is exactly the mistake most young employees make. People work hard for years, salary deductions keep happening every month, but very few actually understand where their retirement savings are being invested." He paused for a moment and then continued. "Come to my house this evening. Bring your last month's salary slip with you. We'll sit calmly and understand everything properly. EPF, NPS, retirement planning, deductions, employer contributions, all of it." Nand immediately replied gratefully, "Thank you, sir. I'll definitely come." After disconnecting the call, Nand opened his salary slip once again on his laptop. For the first time in many years, instead of only looking at the net salary credited section, his eyes stopped at a line he had always ignored: Provident Fund deduction. At around 7 in the evening, Nand reached Nilkanth's house. The weather outside was calm and a cool evening breeze flowed through the open balcony windows. Nilkanth was sitting comfortably in the living room, enjoying his evening tea while reading a newspaper. As soon as he saw Nand entering, Nilkanth smiled warmly and said, "Come in, Nand, sit down." Nand greeted him respectfully and took a seat near the center table. Nilkanth poured another cup of tea and offered it to him. "First have some tea," he said. "Retirement planning discussions become easier with tea." Both of them laughed softly. After taking a sip, Nilkanth looked at Nand and asked, "So, did you bring your salary slip?" "Yes, sir," Nand replied immediately. He opened his office bag, took out the printed salary slip and handed it over to Nilkanth. Nilkanth adjusted his glasses and carefully started examining the salary slip line by line. After a few moments, Nand spoke curiously. "Sir, currently my PF contribution is going into Employee Provident Fund, EPF. But a few people in office suggested that I should shift to Corporate National Pension System, or NPS, because they see it offers better tax benefits and more structured retirement planning." Nilkanth looked up from the salary slip and smiled mischievously. "At least now you know the full forms of EPF and NPS," he joked. Nand burst into laughter and replied, "Sir, honestly, till yesterday, I only knew that some amount gets deducted from my salary every month." Nilkanth shook his head jokingly and said, "That is the reality of most salaried employees. People track food delivery discounts, shopping offers, and mobile recharge plans very carefully, but ignore the retirement savings that are quietly building in the background for decades." Nand nodded silently. Nilkanth then placed the salary slip on the table and said in a calm tone, "Don't worry. Today we'll understand everything from the basics. What EPF is, what NPS is, how they work, how retirement savings grow, tax benefits, risks, liquidity, pension structure, and which option may suit different kinds of people." Nand leaned forward with curiosity. For the first time, he felt that the small deductions appearing every month on his salary slip were not just numbers. They were actually connected to his future life after retirement. Nilkanth picked up Nand's salary slip and pointed towards the deduction section. "Nand," he said calmly, "EPF stands for Employee Provident Fund. It is one of the most common retirement savings schemes for salaried employees in India." He continued, "It is managed by the Employees Provident Fund organization, commonly called EPFO, which works under the Government of India. EPF is a retirement-oriented savings scheme where the employee contributes a portion of salary every month, the employer also contributes a matching amount, the money earns annual interest, the accumulated corpus helps provide financial security after retirement." Nilkanth smiled and said, "In simple words, EPF forces salaried employees to regularly save for their future." Nilkanth pointed at the salary structure. "Every month," he explained, "a percentage of your basic salary and dearness allowance, DA, gets deducted as EPF contribution. Employee contribution, usually 12% of basic plus DA. Employer contribution, employer also contributes 12% of basic plus DA." But Nilkanth added an important clarification. The employer's entire 12% does not go directly into EPF. It gets divided into different components. Employee Pension Scheme, EPS, 8.33%. EPF contribution, remaining portion. Nilkanth explained, a part of employer contribution goes into EPS, Employee Pension Scheme. The main purpose of EPS is to provides pension after retirement, provides family pension benefits in certain cases, and helps create long-term retirement income. Nilkanth further added that the employer contribution reflected in EPF passbook is generally only the EPF portion after EPS diversion. So although the employer contributes 12%, a part gets allocated towards EPS and the remaining portion appears under employer EPF contribution. Nand then asked, "So why doesn't the entire employer contribution go into EPF itself?" Nilkanth replied, "Because the government designed EPS to create pension income after retirement. EPF mainly builds a lump sum retirement corpus, whereas EPS tries to provide monthly pension support." Nilkanth continued, "The pension contribution is mainly meant to provide pension after retirement, provided certain service conditions are fulfilled. If an employee completes sufficient eligible service under EPS, then instead of a lump sum withdrawal, the person may become eligible for monthly pension after retirement. EPS pension eligibility depends on years of service, pensionable salary, applicable EPS rules." Nilkanth looked at Nand and said, "The real strength of EPF is not 1 month's contribution. It is the power of consistency and compounding over 20-30 years. When contributions happen regularly and interest keeps compounding year after year, the retirement corpus can become surprisingly large." Nilkanth said EPF interest rates are declared annually by EPFO, which is generally higher than normal savings accounts. The taxation of EPF we will discuss when we are discussing individual taxation. Nand further asked, "Sir, can EPF money be withdrawn before retirement?" Nilkanth nodded. "Yes, but only under specific conditions. Examples include medical emergencies, house purchase, marriage, education, unemployment." Nilkanth explained further, "Every EPF member receives a Universal Account Number, UAN. It helps employees track PF balance, transfer PF while changing jobs, manage EPF account online. When you switch jobs," Nilkanth said, your EPF can usually be transferred to the new employer instead of withdrawing it. He added seriously, one common mistake young employees make is withdrawing PF every time they change jobs. That breaks long-term compounding. Nilkanth leaned back in his chair and said, Nand, retirement planning is not something people should start thinking about at age 50. The best retirement planning happens when a person starts working. He continued, the earlier you begin saving consistently, the less financial pressure you face later in life. Nand quietly looked at his salary slip once again. For years, he had viewed PF deduction as a reduction in salary. But now, for the first time, he understood that EPF was actually helping him build financial security for the future. Just as Nilkanth was explaining the EPF passbook entries, Nand's mobile phone suddenly started ringing. He picked up the phone and immediately heard his mother's slightly anxious voice. Nand, where are you? I had told you in the morning to bring groceries while returning home. Some guests are coming tonight and we are running short of a few things. The moment she mentioned it, Nand suddenly remembered. Oh no, he said softly to himself. I completely forgot. His mother continued. Please come quickly and don't forget the items this time. Yes, Ma, I'm leaving right now, Nand replied hurriedly. After disconnecting the call, he looked slightly embarrassed and turned towards Nilkanth. Sir, I'm really sorry. My mother had already told me to buy groceries for home because some guests are coming tonight and I completely forgot about it while discussing EPF and pension. Nilkanth laughed warmly and said, That's perfectly fine, Nand. Retirement planning is important, but surviving your mother's anger today is probably more important. Both of them burst into laughter. Nand quickly stood up, gathered his salary slip and notebook from the table, and said gratefully, Thank you so much, sir. Today I finally understood that PF is not just a salary deduction, but actually an important part of long-term financial planning. Nilkanth smiled calmly and replied, This is just the beginning. Next time we'll discuss corporate NPS properly and compare it with EPF in detail. Nand nodded excitedly. I'll definitely come again, sir. As he hurriedly walked out of Nilkanth's house and started his bike, his mind was filled with thoughts about EPF, pension, retirement planning, employer contribution, and long-term compounding. But at that moment, one thought was even more urgent than retirement planning. He absolutely could not forget the groceries again.